Hey everybody, my wife and I recently stopped off in Bragg, California, and it was on our bucket list to do the Skunk Railroad. Well, the steam trains weren't running, and that's what I wanted to do, so we'll probably go back next summer. So we opted for the rail bikes, and I'm glad we did. It was a whole bunch of fun. Neat little hike there at the end, and overall had a great time in a beautiful part of the state. Hope you enjoy. We're off. We are off on our rail bike trip. Just left the station. The bike has left the station. Beautiful Fort Bragg, California. Don's the driver. The driver. Our first.
Railroad crossing.
The locals must love waiting for all these bikes 3 times a day. Here we go. All right, we're booking along here, man. Feel the temperature change, that's for sure.
I knew I should have put my jacket on.
Yep. Bikes on the rails.
Slow.
Pedaling on a railroad track.
We're slowing down, so.
And by the way, there's Redivus radios on these things, in case you're wondering if there's any ham radio element to this. She's communicating to all the bikes with the Redivus HTs. Doubt I could hit any repeaters up here anyway.
Stop.
So that's what we're doing. Next stop.
Alright, welcome to Glen Blair Junction. We made it. Before you step off your bike, make sure you power off on your screen, or you're going to hit the throttle with your leg and fly into the bike in front of you. And it is quite embarrassing. I've done it. You can also leave your helmets on the seat. And when you do step off your bike, turn around and look at the little plate on the back. It has a number. You're going to want to remember your number, as we are going to turn these bikes around. That way you can easily find your bike on the return. After you get off your bikes, you can follow me over here under our beautiful pavilion. I'll give you some more facts and things to do here.
All right, we have made it to the junction.
The forest. The coastal redwoods need a specific set of conditions in order to grow. That's why they can only be found from southern Oregon down through central California and within 50 miles of the coastline. When the cold, humid air of the Pacific Ocean meets the warm air of the California coast, it creates this immense fog bank that rolls through the forest, covering these trees like a blanket, providing up to 50% of the needed moisture the redwoods need to make it through the summertime. Now, redwood trees are considered some of the oldest and tallest living trees on Earth. Some of the oldest are close to 5,000 years old. Some of the tallest are 380 feet. For reference, the Statue of Liberty is 305 feet. Okay, over in
We are at Glen Blair Junction. Apparently there's some party spots here, but it's during the week, off-season, bars closed. No big deal for me. Not drinking right now anyway, but this is this place, fire pits, benches, trees obviously. We're in the redwoods. And, some games over there, Jenga and stuff, but apparently this is where the party happens during the summer. I believe they are turning around all the bikes. They're heading back the other direction. And we're hanging up here and under an overpass, or not an overpass, but a awning. Definitely plan on coming back here next summer to do the steam train itself, but the rail bikes are very cool. If you ever make it up to Fort Bragg, California, here on the coast of Northern California, obviously, I highly recommend the Skunk train and or the rail bikes.
These are
are some of the trees some of our famous American authors wrote about.
Yeah.
Jack London used to come up and visit the coastal redwoods. One of my favorites,
John
Mr.
Muir.
John Steinbeck, loved the coastal redwood trees. John Muir.
Mhm.
They all had really great
Mark
quotes
Twain, too,
about the
huh?
trees. One of my favorites from Mr. John Steinbeck, he said, the coastal redwoods once seen create a mark or leave a vision that stays with you always. From them comes silence and awe, not just because of their sheer stature or their ever-changing colors before your eyes, but because they are like no trees we know. They are ambassadors from another time. Giant coastal redwoods, they stand as sentinels protecting an ancient and mysterious forest. Down here on the forest floor, there's many things to forage, and there's also lots of medicine. What we're looking at right here in this stump is medicine in the form of mushrooms. These are turkey tail mushrooms. They get their name because they look like turkey tails. The thing about turkey tails is there's 100 different varieties within the species alone. That's why it's imperative to know your mushrooms before you ever begin to forage, or you could damage your liver, kill yourself or your loved ones. It's best to leave it up to the
Like
experts.
Christopher McCandless.
Since we've had rain recently, from this point on until late spring, this whole forest will transform into a mushroom wonderland. Hundreds of different
Hear
types
that,
of
stoners?
mushrooms grow here. We've got everything from lion's mane to morels, chanterelles, lobster mushrooms. Hundreds of different types of mushrooms will grow. When they tried to make a goose pin, so the one we saw on the bikes was a great example of a goose pin, but they were really hard to make because the inside is so flammable. It was hard to control the fire. Sometimes they burn half the tree, wouldn't always pan out. And you also get a good look at the size of a stump from here. In order to get 5 to 10 feet up, they needed to carve notches into the side of the tree to put these boards in to stand on. They're called springboards. They'd stand on the springboards and get high enough up to fall the tree. Back in the 1800s and 1900s, there were no power tools, meaning there were no chainsaws available. So they had to use these giant saws called whip saws. It took 2 people, one on each end of the saw. We have great examples throughout town if you ever get curious as to what a whip saw looks like. I work for the Forest Service, and to this day, we still can't use power tools in our national parks, so we use whip saws. And although I've never cut an old growth redwood, we've cut some pretty big trees, and it takes a lot of time, effort, and energy in order to fell a big tree.
That's a lot of work. Very cool.
We are now walking the Glen Blair Loop. Is that what it is, Dawn?
Yeah.
The Glen Blair Loop up here in the redwoods.
Over here, we have a little plant. It's called stinging nettle. If you're not familiar with stinging nettle, the slightest brush up against this plant will cause a burn/stinging sensation on your skin. It'll last all day. It's quite painful, but stinging nettle gets a bad rap. Stinging nettle is highly medicinal. Several different ways to use it. In the spring, the leaves can be picked with gloves on and boiled or steamed to remove the stingers. All the way up until the end of its life cycle, which is happening now, the seeds are also highly medicinal. You can pick them again with gloves and dry them out and use them in all kinds of ways. Stinging nettle is good for both men and women. Stinging nettle is really good for men for your prostate. Stinging nettle for women is our best friend through all stages of life, particularly the later years. If you ever have time to Google stinging nettle, you'll be surprised on how many different uses there are for stinging nettle. You can find stinging nettle in different forms, whether a salve, a tincture, or a tea. So many different ways, and it's a great plant. That trees use for communication. They also communicate through sound at 220 frequency hertz. They're talking to each other. Scientists put some saplings in a controlled study and played a crackling sound at 220 hertz, and the saplings turn their heads towards that sound. It's hard for humans to pick up without a device, but they are talking to each other. Another way they communicate is through their taproot system. What you're looking at right here is a visual representation of a communication. You have an old growth redwood that was cut down. The signal was sent out through the taproot system for other trees to grow. Those trees grew up and around this old growth. It's as if she's the mother and these are her children. We call this a fairy ring. And it has been proven recently that there are mother trees in the forest. They actually will provide more nutrients to a sapling and also make room down underneath the soil for the root system of the young tree to grow. Through thousands of years, the trees within this fairy ring will grow together to create one gigantic old growth redwood. That's why the base of a redwood tree can be up to 24 feet wide. The process takes thousands of years, but they will grow together and they won't remain separate. It will actually grow one, both on the outside and within. If you were to cut down a redwood tree, you would see how it's just all one. You can count the circles to tell how old a tree is. Well, redwood trees are the same way. From Fort Bragg to Willits, and in between there is our other station called North Spur. North Spur is now abandoned because there was, in 2013, a mudslide that happened, and then when they were working on that, it caused a locomotive-sized boulder to crash through the middle in 2015, sealing its fate to today. So the train can no longer go through, but you used to be able to go to North Spur and the Willits train would go there, and then you could decide which way you wanted to go. The tunnel was actually dug out by 6 people with pickaxes and shovels in the late 1800s, early 1900s. It goes through 1/5 of a mile, and it took them 4 months to complete. Now on this side, it's the Pudding Creek estuary. Just on the other side of this tunnel is the Noyo Canyon watershed, and over there we just have our rail bike ride. I'm the guide for that side, and that rail bike ride goes out 13 miles to a place called Camp Noyo. You ride through the forest, you get to see some old growth redwood trees, we get to Camp Noyo, we get to kayak and hang out on the Noyo River, spend the afternoon, and come back in the late evening. About a year ago, we got a grant to start working on the tunnel, but it's not just the tunnel that needs to be redone. We have about 30 miles of abandoned track, as the Willits train can only go out 5 miles from Willits. So in between there and the other side of the tunnel, there has been nothing for quite some time. So along with the tunnel work, we also have a bunch of track, and we go over 12 large trellises on the rail bikes, and although those are suited enough to hold up the bikes, in order to hold up a freight and another engine, it's going to take a lot of replacing, a lot of work still yet. So maybe within the next 5 years, we'll be able to continue on the journey. The trees are vibrating at 528 hertz frequency.
Oh, wow.
Redwoods are very spongy, for my blind listeners.
So that 528 hertz frequency interacts with humans on a cellular level. That frequency plus the pheromone that trees give off, called photodione. Photodione is one way trees communicate with each other, but when we walk through the forest, it's what we breathe in. It interacts with our immune system and our nervous system. The effects of walking through a forest have 2 different names. Sunbathing or forest bathing is the most common term used today. Those effects don't just stay with you through the afternoon. It's been recorded that the effects of walking through a forest or forest bathing can last up to 7 days.
Right on.
So when you breathe in the photodione, that's what helps you to feel relaxed, at ease, and feel calm when you're walking through the woods. Also, by touching a tree, you're grounding yourself. All electricity needs a ground. That's why our houses are ground, and we have that 3rd prong option in our circuit boards at home for grounding electricity. Well, humans are also an electrical system. You might not realize it, but our hearts, everything functions on an electrical system, and we never get the chance to ground
because we don't take our shoes off when we go to the beach or when we walk through the forest.
Absolutely.
So whenever you get a chance, it's a good thing to hug a tree or touch a tree. It's very beneficial for you.
All right, man. Almost the end of the bike rail line. More pedaling on the way back, but it does have pedal assist for us out of shape, fat hams. So I'm speaking for myself now. Full disclaimer. Yeah, little hill climb here. Dawn's the driver once again. And yeah, this has been a really cool experience. Maybe we all learned something on the hippie trail. Peace out, K6DXN, Fort Bragg, California.
Want to not be able to walk tomorrow.
Well, that was a whole bunch of fun. Really glad I did it. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you get a chance to make it up to Fort Bragg, I highly recommend what we did. Till next time, peace out.